Hi vinyl community, my name's Virgil and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I want to talk about my experience over the last 4 years migrating from moving magnet to moving coil cartridges, both high output and low output moving coil cartridges. And to do so, working with a Stepuptransformer, an SUT or a SUT. This specific one is by Bob's Devices. So stick around, and if you like this video, hit that like button, and I hope you subscribe. So let's get started. About 6 years ago, when I got started in this hobby after I retired, I bought a Pioneer PL630 turntable. It looks something like this Techniques. It's about as old. It's from the late 70s. But when I bought that Pioneer turntable, it came with a moving magnet cartridge. Actually, it was a Stanton 681 EE, and I'll put a picture up on the screen for you to take a look at it. A very well-respected moving magnet component. It's a Luxman C1000 preamplifier. It's from the late 70s as well. It has a line stage and a phono stage. It has a built-in phono stage. It has 2 phono inputs, and you can't really see it, but the various impedance settings over here are for 30K, 50K, or 100K. In other words, 30,000 ohms, 50,000, or 100,000. And that's specifically for Phono 1. Phono 2 is just preset at 50K. So in terms of using like a moving magnet cartridge, that's a kind of phono stage with about 47K in terms of your impedance that you would need for that cartridge. And to look at the settings and the specifications, a little bit hard to see, but the output voltage, this will be coming in handy when we start looking at moving coil cartridges. I don't know if you can see it right here. It says 2.5 millivolts for Phono 1 and Phono 2. You see Phono 1 a range from 30 to 100,000. Phono 2 is only 50. Why did I move from moving magnet to moving coil cartridges? Is one better than the other? Well, there's a lot of argument out there. But I started perusing the web, reading up on a lot of different sites like Audio Karma, putting in search terms, and all of a sudden I started reading about moving coil cartridges and said, what the heck are those things? So after about a year into my retirement, I kind of got a handle on it a little bit, and I knew there were 2 different kinds. There was a high output moving coil and a low output moving coil. So one of my first adventures was getting involved with Dynavector, a Dynavector cartridge called the 10, and if you can see it, the 10x5. I've taken it out of the case a little bit, and it's a nice high output. Why is it high output? Well, remember I was showing you that that document regarding the C1000 preamplifier, and that it had a input sensitivity of 2.5 millivolts. Well, if we look at the specs for this Dynavector cartridge, see if I can find it a little bit. Working behind the camera, but can you see it there? Where it says output voltage 2.5 millivolts at 1 kilohertz. So what is that? That basically says this cartridge matches the impedance for this preamplifier. So I can hook it up. So I could play a moving magnet cartridge, or I can go ahead and use this nice Dynavector 10x5. And the other great part about it, it's a shock. It costs a lot of money, but the sound is just wonderful and tracks very well. It's very, the next step in my journey with moving coil cartridges was enjoying that Dynavector 10x5. But as I continue to read, I got interested more into the LOMC, the low output moving coil cartridges. The one I have up on the turntable here is a Denon DL103r. There's a DL103. It's very, very famous, been around for decades. This particular one I thought I'd give it a try, and it is an LOMC. But now let's take a look at the specifications. See the output voltage? Yeah, it's no longer 2.5. This one is actually 0.25. So what does that mean? Well, that's about 10% of what's needed. In other words, the current, the voltage coming out into my preamp from this particular cartridge out through the RCA cables back into the Phono 1 or even the Phono 2 RCA input on the back of the preamp presents a problem. I probably could crank up the volume all the way. You can probably barely hear the thing. So that my friends got me involved with learning about something called a SUT, a step-up transformer. So with the Denon 103R, my output voltage was only 0.25 millivolts, and normally you got to look at these things like by boosting them by a factor of 10, so I can get up to 2.5 to match the phono stage for the Luxman preamp, and that's why I needed a step-up transformer. I had been doing some research, as I mentioned earlier, and lo and behold, one day just going through Craigslist, I found a gentleman that was selling a step-up transformer by a company I never heard of before called Bob's Devices. So he was selling this for about $400, and lo and behold, he was only maybe about 50 miles away. And like I say, it has two different windings, and if you look at it, it has high output and a low output, as well as a lift and a ground switch. So you can have a high output setting for a certain moving coil cartridge that may require it, and you can flip the switch down that has a lower ratio per se for other cartridges. So I was using the high for the Denon 103, and then I also used the low for the cartridge I was showing you earlier, which was a Dynavector, which is a 20 by 10 low output. Okay, so I was using that, and I've used it for probably about 3 years. Works fine. But then I started reading up on Bob's Devices, and I found a new product. Actually, a couple of generations later, there was a Bob's device in it. I think it was called the 1131, and it had very good reviews. But then I started hearing about his Sky products. So this is the one I bought in 2020. It's called the Bob's Devices Sky 40. All right, looks just like the other one I have. And you have inputs, right? You have a ground, and you have outputs. So this particular model, I sent an email, and I'll put the contact information up there for Bob Stanton for Bob's Devices. He hand builds all of these things. This one runs $1,375. Yes, it sounds like a lot of money, but it's hand built. And I thought, well, I just go ahead and try this. And in terms of this particular product, you can actually see it. Provide an info card, and mine has two ratios. Has a step-up ratio of 1 to 40 with 32 decibels and an impedance of 29. I use that setting. In other words, I set the high switch, right? The high switch for my Denon, and then I do the low for the other ratio, which is 1 to 20 decibels, 26, and impedance 118. So I can use that for the Dynavector 20 by 2 low output moving coil cartridge by hand. It's all point-to-point wiring, and when you hook it up, I show like here, for example, I've got my Techniques SL 1800 direct drive turntable, and you have like black and red settings here, so you can just take your RCA cables out of the back of your turntable, and then use your ground. Pretty easy to set up. Okay, so I'll just kind of hook that in there real quick. And then when I talk about the ground, there is a switch. There's a lift setting and a ground. For example, this turntable has to be grounded. My understanding of lift is if you might have a turntable with balanced outputs, and I don't have that. I just have a regular RCA outputs with the ground. And the recommendation that Bob says too is to obviously connect the inputs to your turntable, like I've just shown. And then over here for the outputs is to use something as short as possible. All right, so I've got like a real short Audio Quest cable, and maybe it's about, I don't know, somewhere between 12 to 16 inches. I would hook this up, and so the signal is coming in to the SUT from the turntable. It's grounded. It's coming out from the SUT and into the back of the preamp to like phono 1 or phono 2. So the recommendation is try to keep that cable as short as possible when the output of the SUT goes into the input of the turntable. And like I mentioned earlier, I have 3 different turntables. One is a what's it called? A VPI Scout. It doesn't have a separate RCA cable. It just has some jacks on the back. So for me, I end up having to I bought some Blue Jeans RCA cables. I have some that are like a foot. Most of them are 3 foot, and interconnects. And I even have one that's 4 foot long. So on that particular turntable, I'm running 2 RCs out of the back of the RCAs out of the back of the turntable and down into my SUT. So the SUT is kind of in the cabinet. You never see it. And it's just there. I can throw the switch. I have to open the cabinet to make any particular settings. So that's how I set it. I forgot to mention about moving coil cartridges. Not only expensive, but if you break the needle, you're screwed. You'd have to send it out and have somebody retip it. I actually did that with my Denon DL103r months ago, and I had to send that out, and it took about a month to get it back and retip. That's different than moving magnet, where you can take out the stylus if it's worn out, buy a new one, and reinsert it. So I'd like to hear from you. Do you use moving coil cartridges? Are you using step-up transformers or a separate phono stage outside your receiver or your preamp? I'd like to know in the comments down below. So if you like this video and it's worthwhile to you, give me a thumbs up, and I hope you subscribe. So thanks for taking the time to listen, and I appreciate any comments. Take care now. Be safe.